Good morning, friends! Today I will help you choose which bike is best for you in terms of feeling and driving experience mainly. I apologize if I make pronunciation mistakes, as my primary language is French. This comparison will be based on my 2 years and 33,000 kilometers experience with my 2012 V-Strom 650 and my new acquisition, a 2014 V-Strom 1000 with 1 month and 3000 kilometers accumulated. The two motorcycles in question have received all maintenance necessary for their proper functioning. And so, the 650 or the 1000? Here is a list of topics we are going to compare in order. Take a few seconds to pause the video to read the description. Let's start with the engine, fuel injection and transmission. On both models, whether the 650 or the 1000, they start cold without any problem. The 1000, however, seems to have a slightly more difficulty driving the two first minutes if you leave immediately after starting the engine. Occasionally, it may pop in the air intake but without stalling, so be careful. A TPS adjustment can cure this problem, see link in the description. In my experience, this problem is non-existent on the 650, but it happened to me once with hot engine in 2 years that the engine stalls because of a backfire when I was about to leave a stop. It never happened again. As you would expect from an engine power side, the Vstrom 1000 has the advantage in most situations. The best example is on the highway. The 1000 will purr quietly at 3700 RPM at 100 km per hour or 60 miles per hour, while the 650 will be around 4500 RPM at 100 km per hour, but with a 16-tooth countershaft sprocket instead of the original 15 one. This will also have the effect of calibrating the error about 7% on the speedometer, since the reading is taken at the engine sprocket. On the 1000, the speed is read on the ABS disc, so the only known method to calibrate the speedometer is to purchase a calibration device popularly known as Speedo Healer and Speedo DRD for a price about 100 Canadian dollars. On the motorway, at 100 kilometers, the acceleration of the 1000 will leave the 650 biting the dust even if the 650 is in 3rd gear and the 1000 in 6th gear. In town, the 650 seems to be in its natural habitat. It is maneuverable and the throttle is very easy to control. I rate the 650 at 8 of 10 in town. The 1000, as it is heavier in town, but that's not a problem at all. Speaking of problem, it is very difficult to control the throttle at low speed because it is extremely sensitive and the slightest rotation of it will propel you to more than 60 km, but that's not all. When you ride and carefully shut down the throttle, the engine applies a heavy engine brakes, then jerk when reopening it. This quickly becomes annoying, especially if you have a passenger at the back, which amplifies the effects. This will be due to the emission standards. So when you turn off the throttle, the ECU completely shut off the injectors, which failed to have an on-off throttle transition. This problem does not exist on the 650. To solve this problem, you have to flash your ECU to deactivate the fuel diesel cutout option, which will cost in most cases more than $500. I evaluate the original throttle control at 3 out of 10 in town on the 1000. After the modifications, I give it 7 out of 10. There is also a free alternative to the flash of the ECU, but this will deactivate the gear position indicator as well as the traction control. A link will be in the description for more details. The acceleration from 0 to 100 km per hour is very similar on the two motorcycles. On the 650, my best time is around 4.1 seconds on average, but the bike is still easy to control despite the strong acceleration. In my case, I am faster on the 650. My best time on the 1000 is around 4.3 seconds with the traction control disabled. On the 1000 it is possible to reach a time closer to 3 seconds if you are an excellent rider. But the bike is more difficult to master if the traction control is off, as it will be very difficult to keep the front wheel on the ground in first gear. But if you use the traction control, the engine will cut power to keep the front wheel on the ground, which results in the slower acceleration. The fuel consumption and range. From experience, my average fuel consumption in the 650 is about 3.8 to 4.6 liters per 100 kilometers. In most cases, when filing, I was doing 4.2 liters per 100 kilometers for a range of about 400 and 460 kilometers. On the 1000, my average is between 4.6 and 5.5 liters per 100 kilometers. In most cases, when filling, I was doing 4.8 liters per 100 kilometers for a range about 350 to 420 kilometers. On both models, there is a modification of the fuel tank which gives a bonus about 1.5 liters, only by punching two small holes in the throat of the tank with a hammer and a sharp punch. About 4 small blows and voila! The throat is made of a very soft material. Make sure that the tank is full if you make this modification to avoid gasoline vapors. Use this information at your own risk. The suspensions. Originally, the suspensions on both models are quite soft, particularly the front suspension of the 650, which dives when braking. The 1000 also dives but less strongly and seems to dampen better the road imperfections. The rear suspensions on both models will do the job for riding a solo 180-pound rider without too much luggage. But if you are carrying a passenger, the spring will be too soft for the job and it will be impossible to adjust the sag at the right height, even with maximum preload. To solve this situation, in my case, I replaced the rear spring, which is a stock 450 pounds with 800 pound inches. As a result, solo and duo, the bike is much more planted and stable on the road. The difference is especially felt with a passenger because the bike will now be adjusted to the correct sag, which will have the effect to keep the good geometry of the bike, so the ride will feel much lighter. To correct the front suspension of the Vstrom 650, you can either replace the springs with harder ones, or to save some money, cut and replace with PVC tubes the progressive sections of your existing springs. The original front springs are 0.70 kg millimeters and become 0.90 kg millimeters modded. In general, people prefer the spring rate between 0.90 and 1 kg millimeters. Reliability and maintenance. The two bikes are extremely similar in terms of maintenance. The major maintenance are as follow. The Vstrom 1000 has inverted suspension forks, so it is more difficult to do the oil change of these. It will take special tools to compress the spring and remove the fork caps, which are retained by a threaded rod. On the 650, emptying the fork does not require any special tool, and replacing the springs for harder ones is very quick and easy. The second big difference is the adjustment of engine valves. On the 650, during an adjustment, it will be necessary to remove the cams, which are retained by the timing chain, which is under tension by the tensioner. Whereas the 1000, the cams are held only by gears, so it is easier and faster to make adjustments, as you won't have to worry about the chain. From experience, with more than 50,000 kilometers accumulated on several Vstrom 1000 and 650, none of them have ever needed adjustment. As far as reliability is concerned, there is not much to mention here. On the first generation Vstrom 1000, 2012 and earlier models, there could be clutch or stator issues, but the second generation solved these problems, except for some audible problems like the idle hammer, which is well known in the forums. Short story, the engine will knock at idle when stopped, then immediately disappears as soon as there is a load on the engine. This problem does not affect reliability. Ergonomics, driving position, and passenger comfort. The two models are very similar in terms of ergonomics. Of course, I could tell you about a slight difference for more than 10 minutes. Since a picture is worth 1,000 words, here is a visual comparison between the 650 and the 1000. The major difference will be the seat height, as the 1000 has a taller saddle. People with inseam shorter than 32 inches might prefer the 650 because it is easier to put their feet on the ground when stopped. Note that there is a lowering kit for both models, and lower seats are also available for smaller people. If you are new to the wonderful world of motorcycling, you are probably going to have more fun on the 650 because it is lighter, more nimble, and its engine has well enough power but also easy to control. But do not underestimate its small displacement because it could surprise you with its sturdy, smooth, and flexible engine power band. Even many experienced drivers prefer the 650 because of its qualities. It is also much more pleasant and easier to drive in the city. On the highway, it has the necessary power to travel with passenger and luggage, but there will be little power left for overtaking, as well as uphill slopes. You may have to downshift under these circumstances. For the 1000, it has much better brakes at the front and approximately equivalent at the rear. It is heavier, but you quickly get used to this overweight, which is compensated by its power and widely available torque as low as 3000 rpm. In my case, I pulled a small trailer at 100 kilometers per hour and the engine still had power to spare. If you plan to travel with a passenger, luggage, and you exceed 350 pounds of total load or ride on windy days, I recommend the 1000. Information research, aftermarket, and popular accessories. The Vstrom are among the most popular models and accessible in most countries. For all information searches, there is a very active forum Stromtrooper.com, which is a real mine of information and enthusiasts, whether the 650 or 1000. Both models are favored by different of people for different reasons. Around 60% prefers the 650 for its lightness and nimble road behavior. Buying parts is easily accessible for both displacements and should not influence your purchasing decision. Popular additions are as follows: Givi airflow windshield, heated grips, handguards, crash bars, auxiliary lights, lowered seat and suspension. Exclusively on the 650, a 16-tooth front sprocket which allows the engine to rev lower on highway and have a more relaxed ride. Verdict, cost and personal preference. Not long ago, I bought the 1000 and sold the 650. But even today, after driving both for a long time, sometimes I still feel like driving the 650, mainly in the countryside and the cities. But once on the highway, I'm delighted to have the power of a large displacement that can run over 120 km per hour for hours effortlessly at just barely 4500 rpm. In the same conditions, on the 650, is it of course capable, but the obviousness of the small displacements is felt to this point. Accelerating while we are already traveling at 100 km/h will not leave much power left to find the wind, especially with luggage and passenger. So to put it simply, if your use exceeds 50% highway, I recommend the 1000. For the countryside and the city, the 650 is more pleasant and maneuverable. If you want a great bike without making any modification, the 650 stock tuning is much better. The 1000 is hard to drive around town if you haven't flashed the ECU. Personally, if I had to choose a single bike tomorrow, it will be the 1000. Once the necessary adjustments and mods are made, is it almost as easy to drive as the 650 but much more torquier at low revs. I hope you enjoyed this video and found the information you were looking for. With that, I wish you a very juicy and sunny day. If you want to help me and my YouTube channel, please feel free to subscribe and use the Amazon and AliExpress links in the description. These give me a small commission without costing you anything more, but a small action will make a big difference and will allow the money earned to be reinvested in my channel. A video like this can take more than a week of work, write, video edit, more editing, etc. Feel free to ask your question in the comments.